Hello everyone. Today my partner Shashwat Jaisingh and I, Garima Singh from Group 9 are presenting the paper on responding to public disclosure of corporate social irresponsibility in host countries, information and ownership control, authored by Stephanie Liu Wong and Dan Lee. Let's first discuss about the primary goal of this study. The main focus of this study is to understand how public disclosure of corporate social irresponsibility can have devastating consequences on the firm's specific advantages of multinational companies. When such incidences occur, they damage the reputation of the MNCs, and in order to tackle the damage done, we use foreign subsidiary governance as a strategic response. We will also have a look at the two host country characteristics, namely press freedom and regulatory control. Let's start by first discussing what is corporate social irresponsibility and public disclosure of it. Corporate social irresponsibility is defined as the corporate violation of the social and environmental expectations judged by impartial global stakeholders, whereas public disclosure of it is when the information of such incidences are published and made available to the stakeholders, which results in the damage and erosion of reputation-based firm-specific advantages, which take years for a firm to build and can be damaged severely by the negative judgments of the stakeholders across the related geographic locations worldwide. When corporate social irresponsibilities are disclosed publicly at a global level, it results in the negative halo effect on MNC's future activities. As discussed in the paper, Warren Buffett, the famous American investor and philanthropist, once told that we can afford to lose money, even a lot of money, but we cannot afford to lose reputation, even a shred of it, because it takes years for a firm to build its advantages, and one can lose it within a blink of an eye. Negative incidences impact more on the public, and in order to repair the damaged reputation, MNCs uses the foreign subsidiary governance mechanisms, which are information control and ownership control. MNCs need to efficiently collect and share information with all the stakeholders in order to prevent further reputation erosion and doubts about their trustworthiness. And that's how information is controlled by a firm. Ownership control is the degree of corporate culpability, as stakeholders are influenced by the extent to which the focal firm owns the source of the negative incident. When the positive expectations are violated by the negative incidences and public disclosure of CSI, it attracts greater external visibility and causes greater damage on the firm's reputation. Since reputation is one critical FSA which acts as a pillar for MNC's international operations and expansions, it is necessary for MNCs to respond to FSA erosion. It depends on two host country conditions, which are press freedom and regulatory quality. Press freedom is defined as a degree of freedom to independently communicate and express opinions, whereas regulatory equality is defined as a degree to which regulations are conceived, formulated, and implemented. Moving on the hypothesis, for this paper, we will be testing 4 hypotheses. The first being public disclosure of an MNC's CSI in a host country is associated with higher subsequent information control of foreign subsidiaries in that country. We are hypothesizing this against the independent variable, which is public disclosure of an MNC CSI in a host country, and the dependent variable being information control. The second hypothesis is public disclosure of an MNC CSI in a host country is associated with lower subsequent ownership control of foreign subsidiaries in that country. The dependent variable here being ownership control and the independent being public disclosure of an MNC CSI in a host country. The third hypothesis states that the positive effect of public disclosure of an MNC CSI in a host country on its subsequent information control of foreign subsidiaries in this country is stronger when the host country has higher press freedom. And the last being the negative effect of public disclosure of an MNC CSI in a host country on its subsequent ownership control of a foreign subsidiaries in a country is stronger when the country has a higher regulatory quality. In this slide, we will be discussing the theoretical framework of this paper. In the diagram on your left, you can see under firm-specific advantage erosion, public disclosure of corporate social irresponsibilities in the host country, which will be our independent variable. Towards your left, under subsequent foreign subsidiary governance, we can see information control and ownership control, which are taken as the dependent variables here. For host country characteristics, we have press freedom and regulatory quality. The diagram explains that when the press freedom is higher in the host country, it results in the positive effect of the public disclosure of corporate social irresponsibilities in the host country on information control of foreign subsidiaries in the country. Whereas, when the regulatory quality is lower in the host country, it results in the negative effect of the public disclosure of CSI in the host country on ownership control of foreign subsidiaries in the country. As we explain the results and the methodology and the conclusion in the upcoming slides, this diagram will make more sense to us. I will be passing on the slides now to my teammate Shashwat, who will help you explain the later part of the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Garima, for the presentation. My name is Shashwat Jaisingh and I'll take over from Garima for the upcoming slides. Now, in this section, we'll talk about methodology, various data that we have used, and their dependencies. Data. We have obtained our data from following two sources: the Directory of Corporate Affiliations, in short DCA. This database provides information on MNC's foreign subsidiaries, which in our case is a dependent variable. This database also provides other basic information on subsidiaries and parent companies, and this in our case is our control variable. RepRisk database, which provides information on publicly disclosed CSI incidents. This in our case is the independent variable. RepRisk is a Zurich-based database provider and consultant on social and environmental controversies. Founded in 2007, RepRisk now daily screens more than 80,000 media stakeholders, third-party sources, including print media and online media. We have used the annual files of DCA to identify information on foreign subsidiaries worldwide. This database contains ownership profiles and subsidiaries reporting linkages to the MNC headquarters on a yearly basis. DCA database includes US-based companies that have annual sales exceeding $10 million and non-US based companies that have annual sales of more than $50 million. After combining these two databases, we have obtained a final sample of 135,348 observations at the foreign subsidiary level per year. These observations represent almost 3,528 MNC's disclosures of CSI in 140 host countries during year 2007 till 2015. We have two dependent variables in our case: information control and ownership control. We first measured information control by controlling the number of reporting lines between the foreign subsidiaries and the ultimate parent company. For example, the number of reporting lines between General Motors in Netherlands and ultimate parent company, that is General Motors in US, was 2 in 2015 because the subsidiary first reported to General Motors Europe in Switzerland and then ultimately to the parent company in the US. In order to measure the ownership control, we obtained the percentage of equity ownership in the focal foreign subsidiary by the ultimate parent company each year. This variable is also continuous variable with large number indicating a higher level of ownership control. For independent variables, we have measured public disclosure of CSI incidents using number of news reports of incidents on CSI in focal host country in a year, weighted by the severity and reach of the news. When I say severity, I mean it's the degree of harshness of criticism, and reach is the measure of degree of reporting medium and geographic range. Both severity and reach have three levels: high, medium, and low. Now we move on to moderators. Press freedom. We measure the extent of Now we move on to moderators. Press freedom. We measure the extent of press freedom in a host country via the annual Press Freedom Index that Reporters Without Borders produce. This index measures the level of press freedom in 180 countries. It combines a qualitative analysis of the expert response with quantitative data on violence against journalists in each country. The qualitative analysis questionnaire asks questions about pluralism, media independence, environment and censorship, legislative framework, transparency and infrastructure. Regulatory qualities capture the government's ability to design and implement sound policies and regulations in various areas. The scores cover 214 countries. They are based on factors such as trade protection, discriminatory taxes, stringency of environmental regulations, and effectiveness of antitrust policies. This measure takes a value between -2.5 and 2.5. Higher the value indicates a stronger regulatory quality and vice versa. Another agency that directly measures environmental laws and regulation is developed by the OECD. It only covers 33 countries, 27 OECD countries and 6 non-OECD countries. Control variables. We included a number of control variables to tease out the potential confounding effects. First, we controlled for the set of firm level characteristics that might affect subsidiary governance in a host country. We controlled for parent company size and foreign subsidiary size, both measured as a natural log of the number of employees, parent company age, and parent company performance. The size of a foreign subsidiary may affect the amount of attention and allocation of the resources the parent company provides. And finally, the performance of the parent company may affect the amount of attention and resources that it can allocate to its subsidiary. In our case study, we control the focal MNC's CSI profile, relationship between foreign subsidiary and the headquarters, host country market size by using its total population. We also controlled for the geographic distance between each home and host country. Estimation methods used. We conducted panel estimations. Specifically, we estimated all models with firm level fixed effect with robust standard errors to test the hypothesis. We used 1 year lag for all the independent moderating and control variables to empirically model the dependent variables as subsequent response to the CSI incidents. Countries with the highest disclosure of CSI are Nigeria, US, China, South Korea, India, etc. Industries with the highest public disclosure of CSI includes commercial banks, petroleum refineries, motor vehicle and passenger car manufacturer, pharmaceutical companies and mining. In our sample, 1.2% of the incidents ranked as high severity, 33.8% as medium severity and 65% as low severity. We carefully examined the potential multi-collinearity problem by calculating variance inflation factors, in short VIFs, for the independent variables, moderators and control variables specified in the linear regression model. The variable CSI disclosure in all locations has the largest VIF with an average value of 1.6 indicating multi-collinear. For hypothesis 1, Our result shows that if the focal MNC has one news coverage of CSI with high severity and high reach, then the subsequent information control will increase. This finding confirms our argument on information control as a strategic response to CSI disclosure. Hypothesis 2. Our result suggests that if the focal MNC has one news coverage of CSI with high severity and high reach, then the total investment in the focal subsidiary is 100 million. Then 0.9% decrease in equity control amounts to reduced investment of $900,000. Hence, confirming our argument on ownership control as a response to CSI disclosure. Hypothesis 3 and 4. Public disclosure of CSI in host country has a positive effect on subsequent information of control of foreign subsidiaries. When host countries have lower press freedom, the effect becomes much weaker with flatter slope. Public disclosure of CSI in host countries have a negative effect on subsequent equity control of the foreign subsidiaries when the host countries have higher regulatory quality. However, the effect becomes much weaker and displays a flatter slope when host countries have lower regulatory quality. Conclusion. It is the established argument that to survive and prosper in host countries, MNCs must possess and exploit firm-specific advantages. However, research on the erosion of FSAs has been limited, particularly reputation-based FSA erosion, which can threaten MNC's survival. And the threat is often instantly felt across multiple host countries of MNC's operations. Over the past decade, social and environmental issues have evolved as some of the most pressing challenges that attract stakeholders' attention. According to Forbes Insight 2014, reputation damage was rated as the top risk concern for executives worldwide, and failure to meet stakeholders' social and environmental expectation in growing scale contributes to reputation damage. Specifically, we found that when facing public disclosure of CSI incidents, MNCs tend to have higher subsequent information control but lower subsequent ownership control of the foreign subsidiaries. Furthermore, we found that the host country press freedom strengthens the positive relationship between public disclosure of CSI and subsequent information control. Similarly, host countries' regulatory quality strengthens the negative relationship between public disclosure of CSI and subsequent ownership control. The following diagram shows the relationship between press freedom and information control. We can clearly see the press freedom has directly proportional relationship with the information control. The following diagram shows the relationship between regulatory quality and ownership control. We can clearly see the regulatory quality is inversely proportional to the relationship with the ownership control in case of a high host country. Theoretical implications. However, the little attention has been given to salvaging the fading firm-specific advantages, although the literature has acknowledged the potential depletion of bundle of FSA's investigation of how the damage and to the reputation based on FSA may affect MNC's internalization decisions are rare. The important research gap is surprising because whereas the development of FSA is time-consuming and loss of reputation is unquantifiable. Easy access to information technology has significantly transformed the global competitive environment. Over the past 2 decades, executives at the MNCs face rapidly increasing social scrutiny by these stakeholders residing not only in their home country but also numerous host countries. Consequently, they need to learn and to manage more complicated global operations and quickly address any negative exposure that occurs. Public disclosure of CSI can significantly affect MNC strategies and outcomes. An MNC executive should not undermine either global or local stakeholder expectations. Understanding both pressure enables these executives to anticipate the level of threat that disclosure of CSI poses and thus the scope of strategic modification needed. CSI incidents can be needed. CSI incidents can damage MNC's reputation, an essential FSA for international operations, and consequently affect internalization decisions. Three important learnings that can be used by Canadian companies are creating strong, relevant corporate values in order to preserve firm's reputation in case of CSI disclosure event. Integrate a risk evaluation into business planning. Promote positive interactions with customer and other stakeholders in order to build healthy relationships. Develop a reputation plan for emergency use in case of CSI disclosure event. Ownership control is the most studied governance mean of foreign subsidiaries in the international business literature. This is likely because the quantifiable nature and availability of its empirical measures. Adjusting the governance of the host country according to our needs is really helpful. This focus presents a new perspective for response to CSI by understanding and managing the triggers of CSI incidents. Corporate governance entails the area of environmental awareness, ethical behavior, corporate strategy, compensation, and risk management. The basic principles of corporate governance are accountability, transparency, fairness, and responsibility of Canadian MNCs to utilize these attributes for their benefits in the host country by making adjustment according to their needs and governance provided. That's it for today. Thank you very much for your time.